it's not about being the best salesperson, right? It's about being the best at what you're doing. I think we have to broaden our business acumen first and foremost. I don't think buyers are looking for us to sell. I think they're looking for us to understand how their business runs and how they can get to their outcome. The second piece of it literally is building trust. And you said the word insights. This is a great time of year to do insights. Any time of year is really great. Do insights and trends for the upcoming year, right? And then look at what was said about last year that didn't occur, right? And see if that is, talk to your buyer about that. I think some of why people can't get to what you could call the cost of inaction or cost of status quo is because they don't know the questions to ask. So now you're trying to do math on something that you don't have any numbers for. And that's what I see most is that they're trying to get to a formula and you haven't asked the right questions and you don't know what the priorities are for their business department, et cetera.
Welcome back to another episode of the Sales Gravy Podcast. On this episode, I've got Cheryl Parks, who is my TikTok buddy, and who has a fantastic message about growing your sales. And we're going to jump into an energetic conversation about just that, because we both like talking about sales. Before we get started, though, I want you to go check out Sales Gravy University. Sales Gravy University, and I'm not kidding you here, is the most powerful sales training engine on earth for individuals and small sales teams. There really is nothing else like it. Where else can you find 40 of the top experts in the world that are creating on-demand content and our master trainers every single week delivering live workshops to individual salespeople and sales teams all over the globe? And right now, if you've never tried Sales Gravy University before, you can go to learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com and use the code FREECOURSE. Go check it out. You've never seen anything like it. Cheryl Parks, I found you on TikTok because you keep showing up in my feed. And every time you show up in my feed, I'm like, I got to watch her. She's going to say something today that's going to inspire me and get me going. So like as soon as you got on, like your energy just comes through the microphone. And then my very first question is, where does all of that energy and glow come from?
I don't know where it comes from, but I am super just kind of blessed and fortunate. And I think candidly, I love sales. I love helping people. I love staying in a certain mindset, right? So I just feel like, glasses half full at all times. And I would have to lean into just that, right? Your brain will do what you tell it to do. So.
Well, is there something to walking around with just a glowing positivity that pulls people into you as a sales professional?
Yeah, definitely, because I hear that comment about my energy a lot, actually. And so I really appreciate it. I don't feel it like from my side. I just feel like I'm being, but I do get that response. And when I think back to the early days of my sales career, I think it was there, right? So it just becomes a matter of literally the way you look at the world. I think we've all connected into people that are kind of the Eeyore, so to speak, of in life in general, like, it just doesn't work for me and the whole bit. Yeah, I think if you just consistently practice looking at it being half full, you'll get there.
Yeah, I think that I love that you said Eeyores. I think the one thing that just bothers me is especially when I'm dealing with salespeople and they're the ones that are telling me everything doesn't work and everything is wrong and they're failing. And then there's other people who are brand new that are walking in and go, I'm going to try anything. And I've got the possibility of making anything work, and they're the folks that are just crushing it. That positive attitude and that ability to be optimistic, I think matters. But the one thing about you that I think is important that people understand is that, and it's the thing that caused me to reach out to you to bring you on the podcast. And you might not know this. It's not easy to get on this podcast. We get pitched all the time. Usually I'm inviting you on, but right. It's authenticity. Like, it's not just that you've got this great positive mentality. It's just when you watch you, it's just real. Like it's just you. Talk to me a little bit about how important authenticity is when you're communicating in sales.
Yeah. So I think it is everything. Like, I think it starts there, right? And then everything else blossoms from that. Because candidly, if you're not that, it's really hard to just kind of fake your way through, right? We used to say, fake it till you make it, right?
Yep.
That went away a long time ago. So you really need to figure out what's your unique, what's the unique thing that you do? And I'll bring into this kind of where I started, which is being the shyest girl in the room. Literally so shy I didn't even want to ring the bell on the bus to get off the bus. I would just ride along with the next person and walk back, right? So at the end of the day, I knew mindset wise, I had to step my way into a different mindset or I wouldn't accomplish any of the long lists that I had, right? You know, all the things I wanted. At the end of the day, I just think that it is a discipline, right? It is literally, if maybe what you tried before is maybe you didn't try it with the right energy. Maybe you didn't try it in the right context, right? There are things that we learn, you try it a dozen times, all of a sudden somebody tells you the same thing. You're like, you know what? I never thought about it that way. And it happens all the time, right?
Yeah, I think that, and I do believe, by the way, what you said is true. I think that one of the problems for a lot of people is they try something once, it doesn't work, and they go, that didn't work. Instead of doing what I think a lot of entrepreneurs are really good at this, they try something, they bounce off the brick wall, they go, okay, well, that didn't work that way. Let me try it a little bit differently and try it a little bit differently. So they don't just throw everything out. They just, like you said, change the context, change the way, change how they ask or change how they approach it. And they keep working and working and working until they're able to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, you just chip away at it, right? I mean, you know, call times is a good example, and I've heard you say this, right? You're calling, but you've got your time blocked at the same time every day. Maybe your energy's not high enough at that
Yeah.
time, or the people you're calling aren't available at that time. So you got to mix it up, right? Split your call time, right? And then do some early in the morning, some late in the afternoon, or midday, whatever it is, and you'll find your rhythm. But you got to just keep mixing it up. That's what sales is. It's so simple and yet so complex.
Okay, so why do you like talking about sales? Like, what is it about this profession?
Okay, so candidly, I have to say I genuinely like helping people solve their problems. And I genuinely like building relationships, which I think is what a lot of it is hinged on today, right? It's the trust factor, right? Not just know, like, and trust, but know, like, and trust you enough to take your advice, right? So I think I just got the bug and I like transformation. I like to see results. I like when somebody comes to me and says, I got a promotion because you delivered on this solution. And now what they thought couldn't work, I actually was promoted because of it, right? When you're selling a corporate. So there are just so many things. I think I just got the bug and stepped over my shyness and just never looked back.
Okay, well, so what got you in sales in the first place?
Oh, good question. So for the longest time, I thought it was my dad who was a Xerox corporate exec when Xerox was like Kleenex, right?
Yep.
Looked like a great life. I mean, we traveled, we did all the things growing up. I'm like, oh yeah, I want this, right? So for the longest time, I thought that was what it was. But my mom is actually a registered nurse of 50 years. And for all you healthcare professionals or people selling to healthcare professionals, triage is a big deal. You need to understand a problem pretty quickly so that you can then communicate it out to the rest of the team so that you can, make an impact. So when I think about it, decades later, I'm like, well, both of them had a huge impact. And so that's just part of who I am watching that growing up, right? That whole triage, diagnoses, solve problems thing.
My mom was a registered nurse too. That's cool.
Yeah.
What was your very first sales job? Like what was the thing that got you in and got you hooked?
Okay. So do you want professional sales job or do you want just me
You just talk about you. Like I got you on here because of you. I'm watching you on TikTok every day. You show up in my feed and I like you. So let's talk about the real what got you hooked into sales.
Listen, I jumped into sales as a college student, standing in the aisle of like the hair care store selling hair care products, right? I mean, literally door to door. My first professional sales job was selling copying systems. Okay, this is going to tell you how old I am. Copying systems and going door to door and literally walking and asking to talk to the CEO. Didn't matter what size company, right? And from there, it just gravitated. It's just kind of continued to progress. And then I hit it big because I figured out that the mortgage company was running 8.5 by 11 and 11 by 14s, and they were collating, right?
Yep.
Everybody's not going to know about this.
Yep.
They were collating on tables, okay? But this is before all the electronics came into play. At the end of the day, it just went from like up and down roller coaster to like on high. And I literally saw how much time, effort, energy, and literally compliance issues, what was saved, right, by the system that I was talking to them about. So that's kind of where it took hold. And then I just became this solution rep. Like, I've never been a sell on features, even benefits. I've been like, what is it you're trying to solve, and how can I get the solution within the space of my company, right? So not taking us down this path of developing software into a corner, but literally, what can I leverage at my organization that can help you solve the problem or not, right? I've had to tell people or not on quite a few occasions. Yeah, which I'm very proud of.
I think you and I have a similar background, that we grew up in businesses that were essentially, I hate to use the word commodity, but that's essentially what we would call them. They were commoditized. I mean, everybody sold copiers. I grew up in the rental uniform world, which is,
Right.
I would wear holes in my my shoes going down the street, knocking on doors. But that's exactly where I came from. When I wrote People by You, which was one of my early books, I was really writing about exactly how I went to market, because I was selling something that everybody else was selling, and it was all the same. Like, a copier was a copier was a copier, a uniform was a uniform, a uniform. So I love what you said, because I had to learn that my job was to solve problems. That's how I changed the shape of the commodity. If I was in there asking questions, learning about their business, sometimes solving problems that had nothing to do with even the product that I was selling, I was just taking a pattern from another business. And by the way, that's helped me today as a consultant. But it was that process of connecting at the human level, really diving in and bringing a solution to the table that made me look different than everyone else. And I didn't really learn that because of, some like aha moment in a sales training. I learned it because if you didn't learn fast in these, and the copier machine world was tough, tougher than uniforms, and uniforms was tough. If you didn't
Yes.
learn how to do that fast, you didn't have a job.
Right. You're out. Yeah, you're out. I just was talking to someone about copier world. Literally, the major account reps didn't even speak to us for 6 months. They would walk right by us. We
That's
were
right.
geo reps. We were out in the field. They'd walk right by us because they knew at the end of 6 months, there's only going to be like, if there's a team of 20, there'll be like 5 of y'all
Yeah.
left. So if I spend 10 minutes with every single one of you, like, it's just a waste of my time. And I remember breaking onto the leaderboard, right? And see my name there. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then, the first time one of them said, hey, Cheryl, what's up? I'm like, oh, it's time.
Right.
I've arrived. Right. So yeah, it's crucial. It's literally the discipline, right? It's just
Yeah.
the discipline of doing it when you don't want to do it. I was watching one of your TikToks literally where you were in the car saying, this is the time when you're like, okay, I'm done. That's the time to make one more call.
Yeah. One more.
One
That's
more.
that's exactly right. It was
Yeah.
learning how to walk around in people's businesses. It was learning how to ask great questions. It was learning how to be relentlessly persistent.
Right.
And Anthony, I don't know if you know who Anthony Iannarino is. He wrote a book called Eat Their Lunch, but it's a book about competitive displacement. But he and I've
Mhm.
talked about this before, that salespeople who come from our backgrounds, they tend to be better at the art of selling than really anyone else, because
Right.
they're the ones who had to figure out that sales is not about the features. It's not at all. It's really
No.
about what you're bringing to the table, whether it's insights or it's some value that you're delivering by asking a question that makes someone think, or it's in your proposal where you've learned about, for example, they're collating on a table and you go, I can save you this much time, but you probably understood how much time it was. Like, you were asking the questions, how much time are you spending a week doing this? You did the math on how much it was costing the business, and you were able to say, if you spend this much money, you're going to save this much money. It was salespeople who could put those type of things together, do the math, like build the business case, that it didn't make a difference what they were selling. It didn't even make a difference how many competitors. It didn't even make a difference if their product was the best product on the market. They
Right.
were the ones who were able to communicate those solutions in a way that other people couldn't.
Yeah, 100%. And I have to say that communication piece, right? So it goes from asking insightful questions to being able to actually take that information in, right, into your supercomputer up here, and then parlay it out in communicating to the decision makers or the decision making team. And if you can have all the solutions in the world, but if you can't communicate it out, so that it makes sense, or they actually see the correlation, right? The bridge. All of a sudden they're like, yeah, let me think about it. We've
Yeah.
all been there.
Yeah, if you can't communicate those, you use bridge, which is my favorite word, it's a value bridge, right? Connecting the dots between one thing and the other. If you can't do that, it's difficult for you to build that business case. But so let's just get real about today's world in selling. One of the things that hurts me, it really pains me, is that I don't see a lot of salespeople who have mastered that particular competency or skill of being able to clearly build a business case. Now, I know that we've always, if you read books from the 1950s, they'll talk about feature-based salespeople. And the things that we're talking about aren't relatively new. They're things that we had to learn because of the place that we were selling. But I'm finding that the skill level with both leaders and salespeople to articulate these value bridges unique to their customer, using their customer's language, is a skill that's just not there. I see a whole lot more copy paste off of the marketing brochure and send that in versus really taking the time to think about it. Because what you're talking about is messaging that in your supercomputer, your brain here, and then putting it on paper. That's not something that you just like, okay, I'm just going to spit out some things. Like, you really got to think about that and think about the words that you're going to use and how you're going to present that.
100%. So, okay, so enter my soapbox. I literally feel that, people and I'm speaking to anyone that's in a sales focus, sales quota, sales target goals, et cetera. It's not about being the best salesperson, right? It's about being the best at what you're doing. I think we have to broaden our business acumen first and foremost. I don't think buyers are looking for us to sell. I think they're looking for us to understand how their business runs and how they can get to their outcome. The second piece of it literally is building trust. And you said the word insights. This is a great time of year to do insights. Any time of year is really great. Do insights and trends for the upcoming year, right? And then look at what was said about last year that didn't occur, right? And see if that is, talk to your buyer about that. I think some of why people can't get to what you could call the cost of inaction or cost of status quo is because they don't know the questions to ask. So now you're trying to do math on something that you don't have any numbers for. And that's what I see most, is that they're trying to get to a formula and you haven't asked the right questions, and you don't know what the priorities are for their business department, et cetera.
And that's where you get to the end and you get an objection, a buying commitment objection, and you have no ammunition. You didn't ask the right questions, so you can't get your calculator out and let me show you how this is going to work. So it always goes back to discovery. And if you listen to this podcast, you hear us saying this over and over and over again, how important discovery is. It is where 80% of your time should be spent in sales, because Cheryl's exactly right. Like, if you didn't ask the right question, you have no way of building that value bridge. You have no way of sitting down with them and showing them how it's going to help their business. Now, Cheryl, you said something that is fundamentally important in today's world. We are living in an AI world. We're living in a world where AI can do all kinds of research. It can write things for you. It wants to talk for you and do all kinds of other things. But what AI doesn't have is business acumen. Like, it doesn't have the ability to look into someone's business and use nuance and experience, to use patterns that you've learned from other places. So selling copiers, for example, you saw all kinds of different businesses. And what you probably noticed, and this is helping you in your practice today, I'm just going to guess, is that you notice that most businesses have a lot of similar problems, different contexts, but similar problems. And by noticing and observing those things, you're able to sit down with executives and have conversations that they're interested in, which is around their business. Now, certainly AI can look at data, it can spit out information, but it can't interpret it in a way that human beings can absorb. It can't look at the context of what's really happening in a business, but you can. So this idea of business acumen, I'm hearing it more and more often from executives, that what we need our salespeople to do is be better business people, not necessarily better salespeople. And I don't know if you're hearing the same thing, but I'd love to maybe dive into a conversation with you about what is your experience with salespeople acquiring and gaining business acumen, And what's the best way for salespeople to grow their business acumen, especially people who are just starting out in a new industry? That can be really tough for someone.
Yeah, 100%. And I loved how you brought AI into it because it's super important, right? That's a competitor, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? Everyone's asking, when will salespeople go away? In my opinion, never. It'd be like, when will teachers go away?
Yeah.
Right? It's just not going to happen. So at the end of the day, I really think business acumen is so important. I used to have a senior vice president, and he would tell me, follow the money, right?
Yeah.
Anytime I was calling on a business, he's like, you need to know, are they revenue driven? Are they profit driven? Are they, what area of the business drives their success? And so I think what happens there is you start to broaden understanding how people, businesses, departments go to market. And for me, to answer your question, I mean, clearly podcasts, right? I mean, literally listening to a podcast like yours where you've got a breadth of not only people coming on, but your experience, right? That's first and foremost. The second piece is, I mean, reading. I'm always reading. I mean, I'm always saving articles. I want to keep my hand on the pulse of what's happening out here. And, if you see something, we all open our phone. We all got the Google that's like, you've got an article sitting right in front of you. Maybe you can't read it now, but save it, right? Save it for later, and then you can dive in. So I would say that. And then the third thing that maybe salespeople don't want to, you got to talk to people.
You do.
You actually have to have real conversations. And even when you are not the winner in the deal, you have to ask the question around, what did you see? Where do you think we could have been better? I think there's so much press the button, I want to win, that people don't realize. I mean, I can remember setting meetings to go back and talk to a team because I didn't win. And it's like, I need to understand where we went wrong or what you saw that was
Sure.
better. I think that's probably the key, is just talking to people, talking to your warm network. People would love for you to come to them and say, based on your expertise, can you help me? I just want to, maybe 10 minutes. I want to get your opinion on something. Most people don't say, no, I don't want to give you my opinion.
I think you're right. I think some of it's our ego, right? If we go to a business and say, teach me how your business works, we think, well, we're telling them that we're weak. But for
Right.
me, it's like, if you tap into your curiosity, you can gain business acumen, because in a lot of cases, the people that you're selling to are they have way more experience. They're way more intuitive about their businesses. They understand their sector better than you do. In fact, next week, I'm going to be spending time out in these mines, learning about heavy machinery and how mines work. And I mean, think about that. Okay. So I don't really know how it works. I don't tell anybody that I know how it works. I know how sales works, but I need to understand the context of how these machines are being sold. So I'm going to mines to talk to the people who run the mines, and I'm going to spend time with them, and I'm going to get them to teach me. So that means I got to put my ego away and put my curiosity on. Teach me, help me understand. Whether you lost a deal or won a deal, or whether you're walking around in someone's business and you're asking them questions, you've got to put your ears on and really listen. And what I found that's phenomenal about building your business acumen that way is that people really love to talk about what they do. And the more they talk about what they do and you're standing there, the more they like you.
Right. Because you're listening, right?
Yeah.
You're actually actively listening to what I do, and you're caring about it, right? That's for those of us that, like, you have to care.
Yeah.
And so I think it reminds me of a statement I use all the time. We have to be a student and a leader in the same moment, right? So you have to know when to step back on leadership and / expert and step into student learning. And then you could potentially give your thoughts about it based on what you've seen in other industries or other, others in their competitive space, et cetera. But you just have to know when to step forward and when to step back, and make it look graceful, right? So that you're not all in expert mode, but you're not also all in student mode. I think that's important these days.
And you said something important. I think you got to read. I recommend Wall Street Journal. I read the Wall Street Journal every single morning. It's the very first thing I do when I wake up in the morning. These days I'm not reading an actual paper. I'm reading it on my phone or on my tablet. And Bloomberg is another fantastic. It's a read for you from a news article, and then Bloomberg TV is fantastic to watch. CNBC. And the reason that I watch these is that they're talking about all kinds of different industries. And they're talking about the connection between what's happening here and how it may be impacting people over here. They're talking about trends. They're using language that's going to be important for my customers, that may be new language that's coming out in business. You probably notice there's new language happening in business all the time. Like one of my favorite new languages in sales is multi-threading, which is in the old days was called high, wide, and deep. But now all the tech bros have changed the name of it. So I was talking to a tech company earlier today and I used multi-threading and the guy went, "Oh yeah, we got to do that." He didn't know what it is, but we got to do that. So I use those. And then the other thing that I use is I subscribe to industry blogs. So there's several industries that I'm in particular spend a lot of time in, and I get those blogs, and there's usually one or two associations or one or two big blogs there. I use an app called Feedly and Pocket to gather those things up, hold on to them. And I also have this, I have a tablet called a Remarkable, which I highly recommend. I love it. And I'll go in on Chrome and I'll save articles from those particular blogs. And when I'm on an airplane, and I'm on an airplane a lot, I read them. So you have to invest in being an expert in the industries that you sell to. And then, so if you're reading and then you're going out in the real world and you're asking questions about it, hey, I read this. Is that really happening here? And I found as a young salesperson, a lot of times I would say, I read this, is this happening here? And they would say, oh, that's just stuff that people are writing. That's not really happening in the real world. And then the next one you go to, you say, they told me that this isn't really happening in the real world. What's your experience? And they go, yeah, it's not happening in the real world. But just because I asked the question, I sound smarter, like I understand their business.
100%. I think that's the key, right? So 88% of corporate buyers are saying they buy from trusted advisors.
Yes.
The way I'm going to trust you is that you're looking out for me, like you're looking out ahead. What's on your radar, right? What's coming up, right? I don't want to get hit by a train as I'm making decisions to go down here. But the corporate buyers are trying to make their best decisions. And if you can help them make their best decisions, it becomes first right of refusal, which means they're going to come to you first to see if, can you handle this part? It's going to become references that, this person has a position just like me. I want to refer you. There are going to be additional things that come with that. And that has everything to do with building relationships and candidly not looking for the one and done. Like, I think there's so much pressure on get it done. There's not a sense of like, you got to mix your portfolio. Yeah, you got to get it done, but you also need to have, otherwise you're just constantly in that, I think it was a lion and gazelle. Every day, the lion wakes up knowing, right? He either has to eat or right? So, or the gazelle wakes up, I think it is. So at the end of the day, it's just literally, you've got to plan out a little bit further. Buyers are as savvy as they have ever been, ever. And that is because they already know what their problems are. They likely have done the research on the solutions. So you enter in, they may be 60 to 70% of the way finished. And you're entering in and you're asking real remedial questions. And they're like, yeah, we're already way down the path here, right? So one of the questions I love to ask, I'm going to drop this, is what has surprised you about what you discovered in your research of the problem or the solution? The answer to that question will tell you where they are in their buying cycle.
That's a really good question. I hope everybody replays this and listen to that question again. That was a great question. I'm a collector of questions, Cheryl, so it's going to go on my list. Let's take a moment and dive into Trusted Advisor for a moment. So we talked a little bit about AI, and you say people are asking, like, when are salespeople go away? And your answer is they're never going to go away. And they're not, because salespeople are more important today than they've ever been before. Because in a world where everything can be faked, the only thing that cannot be faked is you. And people want to have a real, authentic relationship with another human being that they trust. We know that to be true because we are human beings. Yep. So let's start there. The second thing is that the reason that they're having a conversation with you is that they don't trust themselves to make the decision without someone giving them advice. You are the authority. This is why business acumen is so crucial, like your ability to think critically and to put disparate ideas together and to look at patterns, and to, in a way, you're just advising them and helping them feel confident that they're making the right decision. And the human to human conversation, that's what matters. That's your human advantage. But if you're walking in, like you said, and you're being transactional, I have no use for you. You didn't help me a bit. You have to walk in and be both relational, and you have to be an expert and an authority. And you have to do that in a world where, as you said, buyers are savvy and they're running fast and they don't have time for inauthenticity. They don't have time for a features dump. They have time for people who are going to help them. And there are some people who are listening that at some point your product may be moved to a place where people can buy it on Amazon. And if they can buy it on Amazon, they don't need you anymore because they trust themselves to make the decision. So salespeople are going to, and this has been happening for the last 100 years. So this isn't anything new, folks. This has happened just because there's ChatGPT, but products get to a place where, like, for almost cars are almost there where I really don't need to go to a dealership. I can just push a button and buy a car because I trust it. But as decisions are more complex, those buyers, those stakeholder groups, they need you. But they need you to come in as a business person who, as you said, is a trusted advisor. Walk me through real quickly what you would consider like the core traits of the trusted advisor. Like how do you know when you've made it to that level with your stakeholder group?
So first and foremost, I mean, I'm just going to kind of start at the bottom rung, right? You have to be trustworthy, right? You have to be trustworthy. That's easy. I also am looking at the full decision, right? I'm thinking about what impacts the decision from different sides. I'm able to have conversations with multi-thread, right? With different buyers. Every buyer in your process is there for a different reason. And so understanding why they're actually there and how they're going to win from making their best decision. There is a sense of detached from the outcome because now I want it to be your best decision. And I'm going to try to align it with what I do and what I'm able to provide. At the end of the day, I know that it needs to be your best decision. Candidly, that's where the authenticity comes in. There are plenty of times I've had to say, this isn't the best decision.
Yes.
But I'm in here, but it's not the best one, right? So, and then at the end of the day, it literally, and the only way I can kind of explain this is when we go to our doctor, we don't ask our doctor for retirement advice. We don't ask our doctor for financial planning advice, right? Stay in your lane.
Okay, good.
we know that when we're in healthcare, we're asking them for healthcare advice, and financial, we're asking for financial advice. So, broaden your business acumen and deepen your expertise on your space.
All right, let's say that one more time.
Yeah.
Say that one more time.
Yep. Broaden your business acumen and go super deep on the being an expert in your space. Right?
Boom. Yep. That's it.
Yeah. It'll help you.
Man,
I'm telling you.
That was good. Okay. So let's start with your TikTok channel. Tell people how they can find you on TikTok.
TikTok. You can find me at the Sales Growth Coach.
The Sales Growth Coach. Okay. Now, I just want everybody to know this is full disclosure. Ever since I got on TikTok, like at my age now, I'm on TikTok. TikTok is dead because I'm going to kill it because all the youngsters are going, Fogey showed up and he's on TikTok. So, okay, so you're on TikTok. Tell us where else. I want you to go check her out on TikTok because your videos are fantastic. They're great. They're authentic. They're fun. Where else can people find you?
You can find me on just about any channel: LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, probably just about any channel, YouTube, at the Sales Growth Coach.
The Sales Growth Coach. And then the salesgrowthcoach.com. Is that right? Where your website is?
Yeah. My website, yes, thesalesgrowthcoach.com. And I'm stepping into advisory services this year. I found that I'm going to walk what I'm talking about. Like literally, I love working on deals to craft that competitive edge to go deeper, right? And to actually work with people that understand that this opportunity is here. And if I don't get it right, it's not going to be here.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Cheryl Parks, one of my new favorite people. I tell you, I love talking about sales. Cheryl loves talking about sales. We'll definitely find a way to get Cheryl back on. Y'all are going to love this episode, so you're going to want more. And before you take off, I want you to go check out the most powerful sales training engine on earth, Sales Gravy University. I truly mean this. You've never experienced anything like this. We've got courses, on-demand courses from more than 40 of the top sales experts in the world, and we have got new courses hitting almost every single week. And you can go take live training, live workshops, and mastermind groups that are taught by our master trainers every week. And you can do this as an individual, or you can bring your entire sales team into our innovative team hub, which is really extraordinary. If you want to go check it out, just go to learn.salesgravy.com, learn.salesgravy.com. And if you've never taken a course before, use the code FREECOURSE to take any course on the platform absolutely free. And if you fill out the form for a demo and you've got an entire sales team, what we'll do is we'll send you a link so that you can get on the platform, just do a test drive on it, unlimited, so you can see how the thing works. We'll see you next time on the Sales Gravy Podcast.